So an energy source is simply, as it kind of obviously states, anything that energy can be obtained from. And that could be for light, for heat, for power, anything like that. Anything that energy can be obtained from. And there's lots of different types. For example, really easy ones to think about are like coal. Oh, can't spell. Petrol. We use that as an energy source for a car. Wind power. There's loads of different types. Now we need to know how to categorise these different types of energy sources into a few different groups. And the first one is primary versus secondary energy sources. Now a primary energy source is an energy source that occurs naturally, so that we can find nice and easily, without having to change it, we can find it in the earth. Now an example is fossil fuels, so coal, oil or gas. I'll write coal here. Or we could think about solar power. That occurs naturally. We don't have to worry about, well, kind of changing it to something else. Wind power, anything like that. Most energy sources we think about will be primary energy sources, but there's a couple of important ones that are not, that are secondary. So a secondary energy source is just an energy source that is made from a primary source. So it doesn't really occur naturally, or not that we can use a primary source. Now the big example that you need to know about is electricity. Okay, now electricity does occur naturally, lightning, but you can't really harness it there. You can't use it to power your lights or your house or anything like that. We make it using a primary source. We make it using coal, or we make it using solar energy or anything like that. There's other examples, such as, say, like diesel and petrol, because they don't just appear like they are in the earth. You have to refine oil to make them. Or things like, so like bioethanol, which you might make from sugarcane or something like that. So there are other examples, but the big one you need to know about is electricity. But anything that is made from a primary source that needs a bit of tampering for it to work is a secondary energy source. Now we're going to focus back onto primary energy sources here and look at some examples. Now I've written down the main ones that we need to know about. The big one that we use in most everyday life is fossil fuels. Now these are called fossil fuels because they were made millions and millions and billions of years ago from the remains of dead plants and animals that have been squashed and compressed and turned into fuel. They are basically, well, they're fossils. That's why they're so old. And there's three big ones. There's coal, oil and gas. Okay, coal, as far as I know, is dead plant matter. Oil and gas is usually more under the sea and often is dead sea creatures as well as dead plant matter. But they take billions of years to make, so we can't just make them really quickly. It takes a long time. The others here, we've got wind power, we've got solar energy, we've got hydroelectric energy, that's the power of using moving water. We've got wave and tidal energy. Nuclear power is a really interesting one. That's using radioactive nuclei to provide power. Geothermal, which is about the heat of the earth, and biofuels, which are things that you can grow and then burn or process in another way to make other types of energy sources. These will all be looked at in a different video in terms of more detail, but we have to know how to categorize them in this video, so that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so the big one we need to look at to start with is non-renewable versus renewable. We'll go back to those in a minute. So a non-renewable energy source is one that can't, or that will run out / can't be remade quickly. And when I say quickly, I do mean like it could be a few years, or even over a human lifetime. A renewable source is energy that won't run out, or can be remade quickly. Often people say over like a human lifespan. So if we go back to our examples here, I've circled fossil fuels in orange before, so now I'm going to use that as our example. Non-renewable energy sources here are fossil fuels, so all three of these, coal, oil and gas, cannot be made. Once they're used, they're going to run out. The other one is nuclear energy. Once we use it, it's gone. We have a lot of it, and it's not going to run out for a very, very long time, but it is still technically non-renewable. Everything else on that board is renewable. So I used purple for that, I think. So all of these, wind power, solar power, hydroelectric, wave and tidal, geothermal and biofuels, they're all renewable energy sources. They're not going to run out until the world is over and the sun has kind of exploded and we all die. It's a lovely thought. But we've got billions and billions of years worth of it. Okay, they're not going to run out. We can use them for as much as we like and don't have to worry about renewing them. So this comes on to our next section. We need to know about sustainability. So sustainable energy does not actually mean that it's just renewable. Okay, a sustainable energy source is one that A, doesn't harm the environment, and B, will not run out for a long time. Okay, because sometimes there's some that will run out, but we've got a long, long time to think about that, so we can count it as sustainable. So let's look at a couple of examples. Let's do a really easy example to start with. We're going to start with coal. So, oh, I can't write coal recently for some reason. Coal. Okay. Now coal, when you burn it, it produces CO2, carbon dioxide, and that is a big problem with the greenhouse effect. Have a look at the videos about the greenhouse effect if you need to recap on that. So we can't say that coal doesn't harm the environment, because when we burn it, it produces CO2. And that is a big issue. It will not run out for a long time. It's going to run out in about 500 years, we reckon, what current estimates say. So I'm going to put that as a question mark. It's quite a long time away. We might think of something different before then. But overall, coal is not sustainable because it harms the environment. Let's go for another one. Let's go for wind. Okay, wind does not harm the environment. It doesn't release any poisonous gases, any bad gases of the greenhouse effect. It doesn't do anything of that sort. And it's never going to run out. Okay, so it satisfies both conditions, therefore wind is sustainable. Another one, oil, topical, I suppose. Just like coal, it produces CO2 when you burn it. And it's going to run out in like 30 years or so, so it is going to run out quite soon, so that's definitely not sustainable. One that people often query and aren't really sure about is nuclear power. So this is quite interesting. So nuclear power, it doesn't produce CO2. However, it does produce radioactive waste, which can harm the environment if it's left and it's not stored properly. So some people say that it does harm the environment. It's not going to run out for about 5,000 years, I think, at the current estimates, but that depends on how we mine it and what we find actually in the future. So we're not sure exactly how long it's going to run out for. So personally, I said that nuclear power is quite sustainable. I think it's a good solution that we have for the energy crisis, but not everyone does. So I'm going to put it as a question mark. We can't say definitively whether nuclear power is sustainable or not. It's more a matter of opinion. Now this is all really important because we need to look at sustainable energy sources because we're facing an energy crisis, they like to call it about. Our society is built on fossil fuels, but they're going to run out. And we haven't got enough right now, other things such as wind and the sustainable energy to keep us going. So we're looking at how we can, a lot of people are looking at how we can improve this and make our society able to run without being dependent on fossil fuels. And it's not just actually the energy that's the issue, it's also economies are based on it, growing populations, there's loads of things that contribute to this. But the energy crisis is a big reason why we're looking at sustainability and why we're looking into these kind of fuels.